That'd be awesome.
All set.
Yay. Hello, welcome everyone. It's so good to see all of you. Oh, look, and it's Robin. I always love when we see Robin's happy caricature come on. I'm Sherry Reichert-Ballou, and my book is Say It Now, 33 Creative Ways to Say I Love You to the Most Important People in Your Life. And I am so happy to welcome John and Judy and MK, who are here for our panel today. And also welcome to all of you who are here participating. So happy to see you all. This is one of my favorite moments of every week, is when we all get together. So welcome, welcome. So what we're going to do to start off our author panel is I'm going to have our three authors introduce yourselves and hold up your book, tell us the name of your book, and also if you would share just something that you've been doing to really take care of yourself and stay positive and feeling good during this time. So John, you're up here right next to me, so I'm going to start with you, okay?
My name's John Rosengren. This is my book, A Clean Heart. It's a novel. And it says here on the back that I'm a recent Pulitzer Prize nominee and that I know the territory of addiction. I went through treatment at age 17 and have been clean and sober since 1981. I've also worked in adolescent treatment centers, and it's my 9th book. And lately, you know, I've been in recovery a long time. And so basically, I'm just trying to do the things that I've done all along to help keep me sober. So I go for a walk in the morning, I do some meditation, I try to sleep well, I exercise, I tend to relationships. You know, the big challenge has been reaching out to people. But just another male friend and I were commenting the other day how glad we are that we learned in AA to call one another, because men usually don't just call one another, right? Just don't pick up the phone and say, hi, how are you? There's got to be some excuse, like you owe me money. But right now, that's really helping see me through. So, and nature, you know, I love being in nature. And so trying to do more of that, I guess.
Oh, I love that. That was a lot of really great things in a very short amount of time that you just covered, right? Like, and I especially appreciate what you were saying about tending to relationships. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it just seems like what you were saying about men. And I hope that maybe during this time, people will be connecting in different ways, which, you know, I know a lot of people are learning new ways to connect. So I love that. Yeah. And John is our very first novelist that we've had on the author panels. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, special welcome. Wonderful. MK, would you like to tell us a little bit about you and your book?
Yeah, I'd love to. So 8 to Great, it's been out for 20 years. Mango picked it up and made it better with this latest version. So I'm so grateful for that. And gratitude has been one of those things that's really kept me going. Like John said, the important rituals of the day, you know, the walk and the prayer time. But I have a couple gratitude groups. That's one of the things that happens usually when people read the book, is they start sharing 3 a day. But in addition to the 3 new, no repeat gratitudes every day, one of the phrases we've been talking about on my Zoom calls is when a worry thought comes, deciding not to worry just makes you worried about worrying. And so instead of adding to worry, you simply catch yourself worrying, say, oh, I'm grateful I caught myself, and go into a gratitude. And obviously gratitudes are everywhere, right? I mean, if you think of the Anne Franks of the world, we can go outside, right? We can go to the store. We can pick up the phone and call a friend, as John said so beautifully. So always so many things to be grateful for. So I think there's just so many temptations to worry that the gratitude has really helped me. And having this group, I've been a member of one group for 11 years and we don't take off weekends. So every day we email each other our 3 gratitudes, and it's we're very close, obviously. So thanks for listening.
Okay, I love that. I think I heard you say no repeat gratitudes. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, you can get into a gratitude rut pretty easily, right? Family, friends, faith, right? So it's so important to just watch for those little things. And, you know, the fact that I have enough toilet paper or sanitizer or you know, for a cute Facebook post, for the geese I saw on my walk or whatever it was. Just really just keeps us fresh.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah, and before we move to Judy, let's welcome Nita, who I saw just joined us. Hey, Nita, another wonderful author. And we have got Puppy in the background.
Oh.
Isn't that like, talk about gratitude? My heart just did a little bit of a happy leap when I saw, I'm sorry, we don't know Puppy's name, but hello. Judy, welcome.
Hello. My first book, I just looked it up today, Wonderful Ways to Love a Child, was published 30 years ago. And so then it was followed by Wonderful Ways to Love a Teen and Wonderful Ways to Be a Family. I'm happy to say they still sell. It's just exciting after all these years. I've been working as a relationship therapist for 50 years. I work with parents and children, husbands and wives, and the relationship between those, and as well as the relationship, you know, with yourself. And so that's what I've been doing and still doing. I'm very busy. I've been shocked at how busy I am. I'm seeing all my clients online and I'm extremely busy. And I could say a lot about that, but this is what I'll say. When you asked me what I'm doing to stay, what did you say? Positive, happy, whatever. Paul Reps in 1957-60 wrote a book, which was very popular. It was called Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. And it really changed a lot of things because it was about Zen, Buddhism, and he wrote these little stories. And when people would meet Paul Reps, they would frequently say, "Paul, how are you?" And Paul would say, "That's complicated. Ask me what I had for breakfast. That's a question I can answer." So that's what I want to say to all of you. Ask me a question I can answer, you know, in my few minutes that I have to talk, because how we are and what we're doing is very complicated. And there is so much emphasis right now on feeling positive, looking for all of which are good, all of which are good. I love my crows that arrive every single morning. But underneath it all is tremendous anxiety, worry, loneliness, and grief. Grief is everywhere, and we can feel it in the air, and we're not talking about the grief. And all my clients who come, and some of them I've known for 10 years, and some of them are new. And there is, what has happened in this pandemic, it has triggered people's any grief that they haven't faced, that they haven't dealt with, as well as the collective. We are aware more than ever as this generation, our generation of people who had, well, a lot of people have tremendous tragedies in their lives, but if you haven't really, and life has been so wonderful, you're not aware. People are becoming, I'm trying to stand around, people are becoming aware that death is here. Death is everywhere. We are facing our own fears about death. So that is the underlying thing. And I don't think that we can really feel good without understanding that within ourselves and acknowledging that part of us that is scared and overwhelmed and fearful. So every day I try to pay attention to that within myself while I'm enjoying my crows and my doodling, because I like to doodle, I like to draw. I try to pay attention to that I'm doing. So that's what I'm doing.
Wow, Judy, thank you. Thank you for bringing in all of that, you know, other piece in hopes that we can, you know, really take a look at that. And I bet you'll have some more to say about that when we come back around to you, because it seems like there's a lot more that we could go into there. Yeah, so don't lose that train of thought for us.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Yeah, and I just wanted to welcome Carrie, who just joined us. Hey, Carrie. So, wow, yeah. So every week we're so fortunate to have authors who come from, oftentimes various, different perspectives and backgrounds and whose work is very different. And it's such an honor to have you all in one room. So it's a great time we'll go back around to our three authors and just ask you whatever you wanted to share, hopefully connected to your book so people get a chance to understand a little bit about your work, but it doesn't have to be. But what wisdom you would like to share right now during this time. And John, why don't we start back with you again?
Oh, come on, I get put on the spot every time.
You're right here next to me on the panel.
Well, wow, that's a lot. And I certainly wanted to comment on MK. I love the idea of the gratitude. And Judy, I was thinking about grief. There was an article in the Harvard Business Journal about that my brother-in-law sent me. How this time there's just a lot of grief, whether it be like my son is a high school senior, so he's missing prom, he's not going to graduation, all that, missing that time with his friends, to people who are losing loved ones and not able to be with them in the hospital. I mean, there's just a lot of loss in various layers for us. And so acknowledging that, I think, is important, because then that's the first step of being able to address it, right, or face it. Kind of to answer your question, Sherry, is my novel, A Clean Heart, is about a young guy working in an adolescent treatment center for kids with alcohol and drug problems. And it's run by a hard-drinking nun with an MBA who the staff is trying to organize this clumsy intervention. And meanwhile, this kid's mom is dying of, or the young man working in the treatment center, his mom is dying of cirrhosis. So he's trying to come to terms with his family's past. And I think a basic theme is that the paradox of recovery is in learning to surrender, we gain power. And so I start with an epigraph from a Robert Frost poem, and it's something we were withholding made us weak, until we found that it was ourselves we were withholding from this land of living, and forthwith found salvation in our surrender. And so it's that idea of needing to surrender. And for most of us, we don't do that till we get to a bottom or a place where life is just so unbearable anymore that the way it is, that we're willing to make changes. In AA, we call it the gift of desperation. So that's, I guess, my thought for now is that in letting go and surrendering is often how we can find peace or acceptance of our situation.
Wow. I'm going to put you on the spot again, John, because I know you can handle it.
You're picking on me.
Listen, do you have a practice tip or a tool that people can use if they hear this and they're thinking, I want to surrender? How do I start? Where does it start?
Well, with humility, I guess. That basic idea that believing there's some sort of higher power and that it's not me. And so looking for something beyond ourselves, a life force, an energy, some call it God. I think that helps. Looking outside of ourselves for answers. Or maybe it's just the connection we feel with other people, and again, trying to nurture that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. And I just am guessing, unfortunately, I haven't yet read your book, but I can't wait to do so. And I'm guessing we might learn something by reading your book as well about that.
I hope so.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm excited to read it. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
So, MK.
Yeah, I'm excited to add a little bit to both of those beautiful sharings. First of all, John, the quote that I sent out this morning in my weekly message was, "Loving is holding each other as we break," by Mark Nepo. And I love that, because it's definitely a time for a break through, a break open, a break free. But as to Judy's beautiful point about grief, I was watching a CNN special about helping children cope with grief, and I have an education curriculum for 8th grade, and so I was just curious what they were going to teach, and I'm just going to say, very underimpressed. with what they were sharing. And I said, oh my gosh. Okay. So I talked a little bit about sad and mad are always two sides of the same coin. And every time you have a lot of sad, you also have a lot of mad. And I actually rephrased it to be angergy. And so for the first time since COVID started, I got my angergy going, and I go, somebody ought to teach kids, you know, about feelings. So in my latest podcast, I think it's number 104, I wrote 3 children's stories, like in 2 days. So you know when you're inspired. Can I hear an amen from everybody? Right?
Amen.
When inspiration hits, it just pours out of you. And they're about teaching children that tears aren't weak. In fact, it's our weakness happens when we hold back our tears, and to allow both our sads and mads. So that was big. And then I think the podcast before was about 10 movies that help us cry. And one of the phrases I talk about in my 8 to Great book is, no one can make us cry, but they can help us cry. And just again, as Judy said, if there's a lot of sadness in us, if there's a bowl of tears in us, then when someone helps us cry, we are released. It's a gift to help them release those tears. So I have definitely had nights where I just wanted a movie to help me cry. And it's so fun to Google. You know, there's a million of them. You can Google Kleenex movies or tearjerker movies or, you know, whatever. So yeah, if anybody wants a list, I'll email it to you.
We do, because Robin just posted in the chat. What are some of your movies? Do you know?
Wow.
And you know, again.
It would be fun to have a conversation with somebody about that, simply because there are so many. I mean, there's all the way from the chick flicks of Steel Magnolias or Notebook, right? All the way to all those inspirational movies, whether it's Blind Side. One of my favorites, I think underrated, is McFarland USA, where one guy turns around an entire city. It's Kevin Costner's in that one. But there are just so many. I really prefer true stories to ones that are written just to help us cry. So I think everyone I just mentioned was that. Field of Dreams helps me cry. There are so many. And then there's a lot of more spiritual films about someone who almost lost their son from being underwater for 10 hours. I'm trying to think of that film, but again, just lots of great films. So if you email me at mk@8togreat.com, I'll definitely send you. I have a pretty long list, or I can have a conversation with you. Thanks.
I was also thinking maybe we might get you to post some of them when we post the replay of this. I'll prompt you to do that if you want to.
I'd love to, yeah.
That would be great. Also, John just posted Brian's song and Old Yeller.
Oh, and you know what? Those are the guy ones. The guys really relate to Marley and Me and Old Yeller and Air Bud. And the ones with animals, it seems, really help men. Don't you think, John?
Well, having to shoot a dog, I mean, if that doesn't rip your heart out, nothing will. You're made of stone.
If you think about Bambi, the mother dies in Bambi. It's like, we all watched this as a child. Oh.
I'm sorry. But Marley and Me, the book, is, of course, much better than the movie, I think.
Well, awesome. Thank you. Thank you both. And let's come back to Judy. And I know, you may want to continue what you started talking about, or if there's something altogether different, whatever you'd like to bring.
When I'm working with anyone in a relationship now, and this comes up a lot, is that if one member of the family is upset, everybody feels it. It's not just about, oh, I'm upset, I need to, or let's say I'm the mother and my kid, and I've been home with the kids all day, and I all the stuff that's expected, teaching kids on Zoom, which I won't go off on my talk about teaching kids on Zoom, but we have to have the awareness. If one person is upset, everyone's upset. not just the mother, not just the father, not just the kid. Everyone is upset. And so it's a need for us to come together as a family and to learn how we recognize when someone is upset. And the best gift you can give somebody is recognizing they're upset before they know they're upset. Because that's how you know. That's how you know that the person. You know, how I learned it was, I used to work in a hospital emergency room and psychiatric unit. I would work for 12 hours a day, and I would come home and I'd go in the kitchen. I'd get in the kitchen when I would get home, and I'd be slamming the cupboards. My partner would say to me, William, he would say to me, "You had a bad day, didn't you?" And I'd say, "No, I didn't. What are you talking about?" He'd say, "Well, I made you some dinner. I'm hungry. I've just been to work. I need to sit." He said, "Oh, honey, you're upset." I say, "No, I'm not upset." Well, he kept doing that regularly. And one day I had to cop to it. I was upset, right? And so he said, "Come on, sit down and tell me all about it." And that is the thing. When people are acting out, being cranky, being frustrated, being nasty, not cooperating, whatever they're doing, they're upset. And now you're upset. And that is, to me, is one thing that we need to teach children, teach adults, because usually people, when you're upset, they start giving you advice. Have you ever noticed that? They start giving you advice. Well, it's all not all that bad. Well, blah, 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 blah. So that's the thing I think that's so important to understand. People is upset in this pandemic. Every single person is upset in this pandemic. And they're working hard not to be upset. But the truth is, we're all upset. If you're not upset, you are not paying attention, because a lot of heartache is going on. That's my talk.
Judy, thank you. Thanks so much. And I'm betting that maybe some of the other people here might have some questions in response, either to what Judy just shared or what the other authors shared. There's been a lot already in our short time together. Does anybody want to say something or ask a question?
Well, actually, I wanted to ask MK. I especially like the gratitude thing that you're doing, and so is the of stopping the worry, because I find myself reading the news or listening to the news and going into that cycle of fear, down the road. And I guess my upset has been more anxiety, of just what could happen. So anyway, the gratitude seemed like a good way to stop that and go a different direction. Is that the idea? And can you say more about that, of how you're doing that?
Yeah, they're completely different vibrations. So it's impossible to be grateful and worried at the same time. So literally, the easiest one is, I'm grateful I caught myself worrying, because that's a big day when you can catch yourself worrying instead of doing it for 20 minutes and then catching it. I used to do that. Yeah. Or I'd give a talk, and on my way home, I'd beat myself up for half an hour. And eventually it became 15 minutes and 5 minutes and then 30 seconds. I give myself 30 seconds to say, you could have answered that question better. And then I have to move on. But the same thing with worry. I think to catch yourself and go, oh, look at me, I caught it, good for me. And then we have a choice, right? But even that good for me is such a higher vibration thought that then the gratitudes. I'm looking at a beautiful, what do they call it? Sunlight catcher, on my porch. And it's just so easy to find things once you're in that higher place. Does that make sense?
I would like to, can I share something about that, about worrying?
Sure.
I used to worry. In my day when I was going through my major trauma in life, I was so worried. There was no way I could really catch myself worrying. I mean, my worries took over so quickly. And finally, I developed a technique for worry. And what it is every morning I would get up and I would know that I was worried because I couldn't sleep at night. And I was so worried that all my worries were right there. And so what I did was I created what I call worry strips. I wrote down every single thing on strips of paper, each worry on a strip of paper. And then I would divide them into, is this something I can do something about today? Or is this And if the answer was yes, it went into the yes pile. And if the answer was no, it went into the no pile. And then I would prioritize them. The no pile, I threw them away. A lot of my worries were things I couldn't do anything about, right? And many of my worries were things I could do something about, but I was so overwhelmed, I couldn't even take action until I took this action. So I would put them in order, and then I would pick them up and I'd say, okay, this is something I can do something about today, and I'm going to do something about it right now. Because when I get through with all of taking care of these strips that I might have, I had no more worries because I had gotten rid of them. I would do that every single day. I did that every single day until I got to the point where I could recognize that I was worrying, and I could automatically recognize what ones I couldn't do anything about. Because some of our worries we can do things about, but we postpone doing it, right? We're immobilized.
That is awesome, Judy. Can I just add a little something? Oh, John, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I love the journaling of that, you know, getting it out of you idea. And so sometimes I'm sad about something and I don't know what it is. And like you said, it's triggering an old sadness. And so one of the stories I tell in 8 to Great is my daughter's kitten was run over. And 2 weeks later, she's moved on because now she has a bird, but I'm still sobbing. And I sat down with a pen and paper and I said, the reason I'm so sad about Charlie is wondering what was going to come out at the end of the sentence. And her kitten's name was Buster. My kitten that was run over when I was 5 and told not to cry because it would upset the other children. That was Buster.
Wow.
So, or Charlie or whatever. I get the names mixed up. But anyway, they were 2 different names, and it was just fascinating to me how getting things out in writing can be so healing. So thanks for reminding us of that.
Yeah. Wow. 2 beautiful practices that you've both just brought in, right? That we can use. Love that.
Right. And Judy, what you were saying too reminded me of the serenity prayer, right? Of grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And then you took it a step further with those things you can change to put on a list and take care of them.
That was a good prayer. That's a good prayer.
Anything coming up for anyone else who's here? Anything that you'd like to add? Maybe your own practices? I know we do have some other authors who are here.
I just wanted to add that I acquired Mark Nepo's The Book of Awakening. I noticed that you quoted him, and he's such a wonderful lyrical writer. And I remember pulling his book, which didn't have that title and didn't have that structure, out of the slush pile. And my boss at the time said it had too much poetry in it and poetry didn't sell, but the writing was just so beautiful and deep that I wouldn't let go. And I am so glad that I didn't stop.
Yeah.
I love that, Brenda. That's great.
I like good writers like all of you.
Thanks for pulling my book out of the slush pile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mine too.
You get nominated for a Pulitzer, I'm definitely going to pull you out of the pile.
I love it.
Getting nominated and winning are way 2 different things.
Well, let's chat about that, Brenda, because that's another great thing that we all have time to do now is dream more, right? And some people said, I can't dream even to life getting back to normal. And I said, don't, go a year out. So let me give you a quick example. Teachers have been asking for what? Decades for smaller class size. Guess what? When we come back to the classroom, they will have smaller class size. So you can imagine us a year or 2 years from now, having these 12, 15 kids in a classroom, right? Maybe it's a shorter day, But the kids are learning so much, it doesn't matter that it's a shorter day because they're getting that educator's focused attention. That's what I found from educators. As a teacher for 10 years, but that they could get so much more, I guess, progress with the kids when they had smaller classes. So maybe it's a shorter day, smaller classes, but I think we can dream a world that actually comes out of this better. And it's a really, I think, fun, it can be a fun thing to think about how this might actually teach us things we've always wanted to learn. Who knows?
Okay, that's beautiful. I love that. And I've heard, as we're now, you know, things are always shifting where we are, and as the world starts to open up a little bit, in some places at least, I think what you're saying is so important. You know, this idea of intentionally creating things, or intentionally opening up in a different way, or bringing in the maybe some of the more idealistic ideas that we had. Yeah, I'm curious, does anybody else have any thoughts on that? Yeah, Rachel. Oh, we need to, Debbie's got you covered. Thank you, Debbie.
For me, I actually use a lot of what you guys have been talking about. The writing, getting it out has been really important to my process. So important to help me see things separate from me. So I'm not taking on everybody's stuff. And it has got me to be a lot more creative than I've been in a long time, like using my pictures into YouTube videos, and iMovies, which I had never done before all this, but just because I created the space for it with this. So, and I've seen so many people do that kind of stuff, which it amazes me. Even the crazy things you see in like videos of people in Walmart, how they're protecting themselves. I mean, that's creative. You know, it's just, I love seeing the creativity that's coming from this, because it really is sparking us to do things a little differently, to do something different. So yeah, that's what I've noticed and have been doing.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for bringing that in. And it is true, right? What is it? Is it necessity is the mother of invention? That's that's kind of where we are.
And when Jimmy Fallon is so informal doing the Tonight Show, you can't feel badly about your videos being informal, right? If you're interrupted by a dog or a child, it's like, hey, good enough for Jimmy Fallon, good enough for me.
I love that. MK, and that brings up for me what one of the other, you know, things that has happened, you know, we could call it one of the gifts of this time, is the authenticity, right? That it's like those plastic veneers that I think, you know, for a long time people could feel, especially if they were doing video or whatever. Everybody now, I feel like there's this new permission to be who we are, you know, and it's beautiful. I think it's so wonderful to see people in their natural, you know, in their homes and with their kids and their dogs, and yeah.
Right.
Totally agree.
Well, and speaking to the creativity too that you just mentioned, Rachel, a guy I sponsor in AA has been baking bread. And so his goal was to give 25 loaves of bread to 25 different people, or, you know, one each to 25 different people. And his neighbor, he didn't know, she's an older woman from Germany, and he had seen an ambulance at their house 2 months ago, and he happened to bump into her on the street, and he said, hey, how's your husband? And she said, well, he died. And he felt terrible, so he brought over a loaf of bread to give to her. And as a result, she baked him brownies, left them in his doorstep, and now they're buddies, they know each other, they're talking. And I thought, you know, out of this isolation, his creativity has led to this connection with this woman. And poor woman, you know, grieving, widow, and probably feeling lonely, living by herself. And now she's got this family next door who's befriended her. So I just thought, you know, there are so many moments like this. I'm sure we've all heard stories like this where people are overcoming the isolation and actually forming connections. You know, even the Zoom call. I mean, I'd never done a Zoom call, and now look, we're doing it. So I really want to try to focus on that kind of thing too, the good stuff happening, the silver linings, rather than get lost in the dark clouds.
I love that, John. Thank you. Brenda, did you have? I thought I
Yeah.
saw your hand.
Actually, John set me up perfectly, because where I was going was that people doing acts of kindness and goodness, but I feel like they're following the Judy Ford, what can I do something today? So that guy could bake a loaf of bread and give it to the grieving neighbor. And like, people have been making masks and like, people have just been doing what they can do, like, donating food, but I think that what I've noticed is that people, it's sort of like an inspired practicality or something. They're doing something that will help today. What can I do to help today?
I love that. Yes. And Brenda knows this, that I've teamed up with a poet friend, and we have what we call Secret Agents of Change. And we read a poem and give a mission based on the poem, because we love poetry. And just like that. So we've done some emergency operations, Operation Love, Operation Remedy, where we're sending people out that day to exactly like you're saying. And people's creativity in like being able to spot the widow, or somebody who's grieving right now, or someone who is overwhelmed, an overwhelmed mom, is so beautiful to see. Like, just like you're saying, there's a practicality in it, and there's a very much in the moment, like, I see someone who could use some love here, yeah.
Right. And even like just in my personal life, like, what can I do? Like, well, I can get on my little soapbox and tell people, like, if you need to order books, like, Amazon doesn't need your help. Order it from your local bookstore and help the local bookstore survive. And so I've actually been able to redirect like over 1,000 book sales to local bookstores in the San Francisco Bay Area. So that's just, what can I do? I can influence too. If I can't bake bread, but like I can, say, Amazon, Jeff Bezos doesn't need your money. Like, but the bookstore next door might need the sale of like, a bag of books to help them survive.
Oh, Brenda, that's such a great reminder. I love that you brought that in too, of there's so many different areas where we can be offering aid, right? And it doesn't always have to be the obvious. Like, I think that's such a beautiful example. I'm curious, does anybody else have any?
I just want to say to Brenda, you're very courageous, Brenda.
Oh,
Thank you.
oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think the giving feels so good to the giver, right? I give selfishly, I'm sorry. It's so fun to give. So I have a curriculum that I was selling only to schools. And it was fairly new. So maybe, I don't know, a couple dozen schools in the country had it. And when the kids all had to go online, I said, well, anybody who wants my curriculum for free can have it. And we had about 350 homeschoolers. And the feedback I get, yeah, if anybody wants that again, I still have the link open. I am going to take it down eventually, right at the end of this. But I mean, it's just, the fun of giving. My assistant, we have less work now. I'm national speaker, so we have less work. And she does Reiki. So now she's doing a whole lot more Reiki over the phone and is giving away 2 sessions a week. Wow. So again, if you'd like one of those sessions, let me know and I'll connect you with her. But it's just that I think we all have something, as you said, to give. I'm not a baker. Probably good for my waistline that I'm not, but there are things I can give away. So.
Right. And, too, I think it can be simple as well, like trying to reach out to someone we know who's living alone, right? Or someone who's elderly and maybe afraid because they're part of, or anybody in the vulnerable population. I sent out a mass email about my book and I said, anyone who's been laid off, I'm happy to give you a free copy. And several people took me up on that. And, to your point, it feels good to be able to give to others, right? And do something kind for others. And so they can be little things, but it can help us feel it can help us get through our day too, I think.
Yeah. 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 Nita.
Hi, the comments have been grateful. This is a picture of my dog, by the way.
Oh.
She's not staring at you. Yeah.
I noticed she's
Yeah, she's perfect. Yeah. So I really have been enjoying hearing kind of the way to reframe the grief. I am in the Feel It First camp, which I think everybody here is. But I wanted to share. We've had just the coolest things in my neighborhood, which I've lived in this neighborhood for 20 years, and I sort of know my neighbors. But I think we have 10 students in a 4-street block who are all graduates. And so they're planning all these basically like a distance graduation. And then we've had all these birthdays, mostly of teenagers, 16 key birthdays, like 10, 16, 18. And so they're doing caravans, and even the local police department has gotten in on it. So they come, they go like to the street over, and we all queue up. And the last one, there was probably 40 cars, and people decorate their cars with balloons. And the one guy has a convertible, and he has this giant stuffed giraffe. I should have gotten a picture of that. He has a giant stuffed giraffe. And so he puts the giant stuffed giraffe in his convertible, and it's always in these caravans. And then another neighbor who happens to be a realtor, so he kind of started some of this, but he and his partner bought those unicorn costumes. And they've been just randomly, they'll just like walk through the neighborhood. And I mean, this is the kind of stuff, it's so simple. The unicorn costumes were probably expensive, but to take the time to queue up at 3:45 for a 4 o'clock drive-by to give an 18-year-old, a happy birthday shout out. That's the kind of stuff I'm seeing that, it's really doing a lot for us. We've had our own situation, but right now it's what our neighborhood has needed, and it's just made me feel so good about basically humanity, quite frankly. So yeah.
Nita, I love that. I love that you just shared that. It makes me wish I had a unicorn costume. I can only imagine for the kids, that to see someone.
Oh, no. For the 58-year-olds. I needed it, really.
Nita, where do you live?
I live in Upper Arlington, Ohio. It's a suburb of Columbus.
Oh,
so Columbus, Ohio, Central Ohio.
Okay.
Nita, you have to find out if the giant giraffe has a name.
I have to ask my friend whose son it was that had the birthday, because there's got to be a story there. And like I said, I wasn't thinking about getting a picture. I was more concerned. My husband really wanted to go too. So it was more about, like getting him in the car too, so he could play along, which he's healthy enough now to do that. So, but that was just the best, really. So.
Oh, Nita, that's just wonderful. And I'm glad to hear about your husband, that he could, yeah. So I'm curious, since we have a little pause, John, I know this is a little bit off where we've been going, but since you know so much about addiction, I'm just wondering if you'd like to talk a little bit about that, and maybe anything that you've seen in terms of, how people are especially taking care of themselves right now.
Well, what I know most about addiction is it feels great to get high. That was my problem. I think with the increased, there's a heightened anxiety and sense of isolation. And so I know that's been tough and has challenged a lot of people in recovery, and certainly exacerbated the addictions of those still actively using. I know calls to mental health treatment centers and substance abuse treatment centers are up. And fortunately, they're able to do more outpatient work now with telemedicine. But I think it's, as I said in the beginning, it's going back to the basics of what helps keep us healthy, and it's helping others. That's the foundation, actually, of AA, and that helping others. I help myself, And, you know, what you were saying, MK, about giving, you know, it's like the idea that we can't keep it unless we try to give it away. And so that's how AA started, with one alcoholic trying to help another alcoholic, and that's how it continues. And so it's, you know, the two basic things I tell people is to try to be grateful. You know, what can you be grateful for? Because it's true, when we're feeling grateful, we're not feeling anger or stress or whatever. And then, how can I be of service? How can I help others? And it can be as simple as putting a giraffe in your car and driving by someone's house who's having a birthday, or a bacon bread, or it can be, you know, giving blood, going to making masks, doing all these little, and again, it can be little simple things. But I think when we do those things, we get outside of ourselves, and we feel, you know, it's an antidote to self-pity, and we feel like our lives are purposeful and meaningful. And so just those two things, really, gratitude and service.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
I am a member of Al-Anon. I have a family member who has an active addiction. And of course, this time period, I was especially concerned that that was going to trigger them. They live in another city from me. And boy, the Al-Anon meetings, there are many who have, it's called Step 11, who have meditation as part of the meeting. So it's a little meditation and then a reading. I guess sometimes we do the reading first and the meditation second, but it's just so wonderful, because almost any hour of any day, you can go on the site and go, okay, what number do I call at this time? So I have one that I attend once a week for an hour, but if I ever just, you know, need to meditate or need a little inspiration, knowing that those numbers are there on that website is awesome. So if anybody knows of someone who has a family member, again, that they're worried about, and just to finish that up, my family member who was isolated and was also worried about their own sobriety just moved in with my daughter and son-in-law. And those are two of the most OCD people on the planet. And yet they opened their home to this person and said, welcome. So it's been such a huge miracle. And again, right, all things work to good. It's just finding the miracle amidst the madness, isn't it?
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. Yeah. And thank you also for sharing that resource. You know, just, it's so great to be reminded, you know, that there's support out there in all kinds of ways.
Very grateful for 12 steps, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's such power in the shared story too. You know, I think in Al-Anon, they say, no one understands like we who've been there. And it, whatever the trauma, you know, someone else who's been there through it, it doesn't have to be addiction, but just sort of someone else can understand in ways that someone who has been through that trauma can't. And so there's a real power in that connection.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we can seek it out and find it as we can.
Yeah. Well, and Judy, I wanted to come back to you because I, unfortunately too, have not read your book, but I love that, How to Love a Child. I love that title just itself. And do you have any tips from your book that would be helpful for people right now in maybe new ways that we could reach out, even if we don't have children in our household, but how we could reach out to children who are going through this particular time?
Well, they don't let you reach out. Everyone's quarantined.
No, I don't mean in person. That's what I mean. How could you, I don't know what you might suggest.
Well, I think the most important thing that I would want to say about children and during this time, that it's very important, wherever possible, give the child a voice in the matters that affect them. Mm. So much of children's lives is being told, somebody's telling them what to do and how to behave and what to think. And so they're so controlled. That creates much frustration in the child, that they act out in lots of different kinds of ways. Mm-hmm. And so that is a contact you have with the child. It's very important to ask. Not ask why. I don't think that's a question you should never ask a child. That's a question of torture. Do not ever ask a child why. Why? Why are you wearing that? Why are you doing that? Why did you don't? That's torture. But to be interested in their opinions and their point of views and how they want to spend, to talk to children. And children, when they get to be teens, they don't really talk to you. And so you have to talk to them. And what that means is you have to share stories of your life. Stories, I agree with John, stories are so important to share. And they're very important to share with kids. So I just got a bright idea while I was sitting here, right now, right while I was sitting here. If you know a child, you should call them up and tell them a story. You should call them and say, or you should tell them the story of when you first met them. Or you should tell them the story of how you know them and what you think of them. And you should tell them, you know, you are the greatest kids since sliced bread, except for my own kids, of course. My own kids are the best thing. You're the next best thing. And so, and that way you have to be kind of honest with children. Be honest, because they know if you're pulling their leg, they know if you're pulling their leg. And the other thing I want to say about this that is important to me, when I was going through my dark night of the soul, I've had many dark nights of the soul, but I had this particular dark night of the soul. My daughter was 5 years old, and at that time, she's 41 now, and I had the belief that you should, and it was popular in those days, that a child should never see their parent cry. That would traumatize them, right? Well, I was having a particular bad day, so I went to my bedroom where I thought I could hide, and I accidentally left the door ajar, and I was sobbing. Usually I didn't ever sob because I tried to hold my tears in, but sometimes tears come out and you can't hold them in. So I was sobbing, and she came into the room. Now, I had told her from the time she was a little baby, it's okay to cry, honey. Crying is good. It makes you feel better. Go ahead and have a good cry. That was my motto, and that's what I said. She could cry, but I couldn't. So this day I was crying hysterically. And she came in and she sat down next to me on the bed, and she pulled my head down like this, patted me, and my head was bigger than practically her whole body. And she's patting me, and she says, Mom, go ahead and have a good cry. You're going to feel so much better. It's good to cry. But Mom, do you mind if I shut your door? Because you're really bothering me. So that's the deal. It doesn't hurt children to know that you're upset, that you're crying, that your heart is broken. It doesn't hurt them unless you make them responsible for making it better, right? So that is the parent. We as parents are upset also. You know, the number of suicides, the number of child abuse, etc. I have a friend who's the head of a child abuse center, and the number of child abuse cases are up because parents are upset and they don't have any way to release it, and they don't know how they're doing it, and all of that. So that's my message. It's okay. Reach out and call them and tell them a story. Children love to know little stories, little secrets, secret stories. You know, once your mother was blah, blah, blah. I knew her when she was blah, blah, blah. Oh, they love that story. And you can say, it's just between you and me. You don't have to be, that's what I'm talking about. And to recognize that everyone is upset and it's all very complicated, but the cure for complication is really crying and being simple. And that's really it. Sometimes we make everything so complicated.
Judy, I love what you just said, because, and that is exactly the kind of thing I was thinking. You know, we could call children in our lives, and I love that, right? To share the stories and to keep the relationship going, and at the same time, you know,
Children need more than just their parents for support. They need something else. They need a community. This is what we're also learning from the pandemic. As you know, we need community. That's why AA works so well. Al-Anon works so well, because people need community. And we all need community, and people are missing it. That's the one wonderful thing that we're getting, is how important other people, because what affects me affects you, affects people in China, vice versa. We need each other to survive.
And that crying is like a form of surrender that started us off in this discussion today, right? it's just, again, just that release of tears. So if I could just add in, if anybody's interested in I have a whole chapter on Feel All Your Feelings or any of the stuff from 8 to Great. Again, to contact me at mk@8togreat.com or go to my podcast, MK Mueller's Positive Powercast, and we've got lots of stuff on feelings. So this has just been a great opportunity, Sherry. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. Marlena, do you say Marlena? Marlena.
Yeah, it's Marlena. I just want to say this is the first time I've been on this, and it's been lovely. And Judy and John and MK, thank you for sharing about your lovely books. And it's good to see you, Robin and Nita and Debbie and Brenda, some faces that I recognize. So thank you.
Aw, thank you for being here. And you have a beautiful name. I love it.
Thank you.
Gorgeous. Yeah. Well, we do just have a couple minutes. Is there anything that anyone wanted to say before we close our beautiful circle?
When somebody asks me, how are you? I say, grateful. And you?
Oh,
So I'm grateful for this time. It's been great.
well, and I would just like to say again, deep gratitude to Mango Publishing for just Judy was just talking about community, and I feel as if this community is so beautiful and compassionate, caring. We called this wisdom in the time of COVID, but there is just so much wisdom in this community, and I feel so grateful. It has been like a real touchstone for me throughout this time, because we did start these panels as a response to everything that was going on. And wow, what a gift it's been. And that you're all here, that you show up and share from your hearts. It's really such a gift. Thank you.
I'd just like to know where everyone's from.
Pardon me?
I'd like to know where everyone's from. Where's everyone from? Well, John, where are you from?
I'm in Minneapolis.
Minneapolis?
Venice, Florida.
Wow, you guys. Sherry?
I'm in Venice, Florida too.
Really?
Maybe that's why we know each other.
Contact me, Rachel.
I will.
I love that. I'm in San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
Judy?
I'm Eugene, Oregon.
Eugene, Oregon. Like Eugene.
Yeah, great.
Judy, have you shared where you're from?
Oh, Kirkland, Washington.
Yes.
Outside of Seattle.
Speaking of coronavirus.
Yeah, ground zero.
Coronavirus,
they're from.
yes, is exactly a mile from me, where it started.
Wow.
Yeah.
At the nursing home.
I'm in El Cerrito, California, right across from San Francisco.
Ah.
Neighbor.
Mhm.
Robin, where are you?
I'm in Miami. I'm originally from Ohio, though.
Oh, where in Ohio?
Toledo, up north.
It's so nice that you're on video, by the way. As much as I love your beautiful caricature, I love seeing you real time. Thank you.
I like the bike in the background.
I do too.
I keep telling everyone it makes me look so much sportier than I am. I think I've used this bike like 10 times since we moved down here, but I'll
Are you
take
keeping
it.
up with your
That's
fencing?
great.
Looks good.
Are you still doing
What?
fencing?
No, I haven't been, especially not now, but that's an expensive hobby. It was very easy in college, but it's harder once you're a real person, I've learned.
A real person. Well, everyone, thank you so much. Thank you. We'll be back next week. I hope you'll come back and join us with our next 3 authors that you can meet. And thank you for everything that you've shared.
You're welcome. Thanks for organizing, Sherry.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Great to meet you all. Rachel?
Bye, everyone.
You guys do.
Bye.